Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to look at everyday agreements, not as thick, intimidating legal documents, but as simple, easily understandable concepts. We're focusing entirely on decoding the classification of contracts. By the end of this, you'll see exactly how the law categorizes the promises we make to one another. Here is our agenda for today. We'll be looking at contract formation, contract execution, which is also known as performance, and finally, contract enforceability. Now, looking at this hand-drawn map of our roadmap, you might notice an obligation branch way over there on the right. Well, we are intentionally leaving that out today. We really want to keep our focus incredibly sharp for beginners, so we're zeroing in purely on those first three buckets: formation, performance, and enforceability. Okay, let's open our first folder, contract formation. This section answers a basic question. Exactly how is an agreement brought to life in the first place? Well, the most obvious type is an express contract. This is where an agreement is explicitly stated in either oral or written form. Think of a standard written employment agreement, right? Both parties clearly speak or write out the exact terms, leaving absolutely no room for guessing. But what if you silently pay a bus fare and just take a seat? That is an implied contract. You didn't announce your intentions out loud, and you certainly didn't sign a piece of paper. But regular people enter into these every single day. Your actions alone bind you to the agreement to utilize their service. Then there's the quasi-contract. Honestly, this one is fascinating because a party might enter it without any formal agreement whatsoever, or even purely by mistake. Say a delivery driver drops off a product you never actually ordered, but you accept it and use it anyway. Well, you still have to bear the legal consequences and are responsible for the losses created. Moving right along, let's open our second folder, contract execution. The law also calls this performance. It basically asks, where exactly are we in the actual process of fulfilling this agreement? Let's compare an executed contract directly against an executory contract. An executed contract means the promise is already performed. The whole process is completely done, like paying cash at a showroom and immediately driving away with a new car. An executory contract, on the other hand, is still undergoing that process. Think of booking a customized car that will be manufactured and delivered to you after 3 months. The promise has been made for sure, but the performance is still in motion. So you know how a contract is formed, and you know how it's executed. But if something goes wrong, what happens next? Will the agreement actually hold up in court? That brings us to our third and final folder, contract enforceability. This is the ultimate judge of whether the law will actually back you up when you need it most. The absolute gold standard we all want here is a valid contract. This simply means it perfectly fulfills all the legal essentials, specifically those listed in Section 10 of the Indian Contract Act of 1872. If you meet those essentials, you have a rock-solid, legally binding agreement. Conversely, a void contract is one that the law simply can no longer recognize. Why? Usually because of a major disruption. This could be a supervening impossibility, like a party becoming mentally disabled after signing. Or it could be subsequent illegality, which just means a sudden change in state policy or law made your previously fine agreement illegal. Even unpredictable future events can render a contract completely void. Then there is the voidable contract. Notice the able part of that word. This happens if someone signs a contract without their free consent. The actual terms of the contract might be completely legal, but because one party was pressured or lacked free will, that specific victim is given the power to legally cancel or avoid the agreement. Now, agreements concerning things like drugs, unapproved alcohol, or weapons trafficking, those are classified as illegal contracts. This means they're explicitly against the law from the very beginning and are entirely unrecognized by the courts. There's no gray area there. Finally, it's a bit heartbreaking but true. An unenforceable contract is totally valid in its core nature, but a mere technical defect makes it impossible to carry out in court. Imagine having a completely perfect agreement, but a missing signature or a wrong date means the law literally cannot enforce it. It's tough, but details matter. All right, let's get to our final verdict. To sum it all up, every contract fits neatly into our three simple folders. Formation covers exactly how the contract is made, whether it's express, implied, or quasi. Execution tells us where it stands in the process, either completely executed or executory and ongoing. And enforceability dictates whether the law will actually support it if things go wrong, classifying it as valid, void, voidable, illegal, or unenforceable. So, here's a thought to leave you with. The next time you silently pay for a bus ticket, will you realize you just participated in a contract that is implied, valid, and fully executed? Makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other invisible agreements are you making every single day?